life, things change, but many things stay the same. And it's no different with this 2017 Toyota 86. Gone are the days of Scion. The FRS is done. It's been rebranded, massaged, and of course updated. As with most vehicles that get refreshed along their life cycle, subtle things happen. Wheels get changed, bumpers, headlights, taillights. In the case of the product planners here, look like they just went onto enthusiast forums and decided to add on the things that people usually modified. It looks like they borrowed the Valenti headlight and taillight design. The front bumper has these bear claws in them now, a more aggressive look, like it's almost a body kit. They've moved away more from the FT concept here, and you know, it's gonna be a mixed bag. People are gonna like this, or they probably won't. Now, another thing to get out of the way is, I know I'm going to hear about it. Why don't you wash the car? Well, you can come out here and help me wash it, because I've washed it 3 times. And in Illinois, this hot lava color has turned into salty hot lava. There is salt all over everything. The roads are white. You drive this for 5 minutes and it is covered. I'm just tired of washing it, so it is what it is, and that's the excuse. When you open up the trunk, at first you're like, man, this is a joke. I don't know what I'm gonna fit in here. And the reality is it doesn't have a lot of trunk depth down towards the floor. But the depth with the seats folded down towards the front of the vehicle, this is where you can fit 4 wheels and tires, a jack. I can fit my 42-inch slider widthwise with a little bit of finagling. You can jam a lot in here if you're good at Tetris. And I think that's what makes this platform a little bit more usable than a car like the Miata or convertibles in general. Getting inside the 86, this is a low vehicle, but much like we talked about when the vehicle was launched, the thing that they focused a large amount of time on in design is making sure the interior sills are wider, that it's not cropping leg space, hip space. You don't feel like you are inside a straight up shit box or shoe box of a car. You can fit in here comfortably. There's a surprising amount of leg room, hip room, headroom. You don't feel jammed in here, and that's one of the best parts about the 86 interior. Like I said about the exterior, it looks like the product planners were busy in here, paying attention to what they should upgrade. The fundamentals are still strong. You still have the low glare material on the dashboard. It's non-reflective. There's not a lot of shiny bits in here. But it looks like, again, they followed what the aftermarket was doing. Like this center plastic piece is now covered in Alcantara, kind of like what JPM Coachworks was doing for the aftermarket. Your upper door areas have Alcantara padding. The seats are a new design, much more grippy, supportive without having to use any leather, at least on this model. Everything is padded and supported extremely well. And then you get to the steering wheel design. And the first thing I thought when I saw this is, well, obviously they added the volume buttons, which have been around for a bit. But this steering wheel design looks very much like the old Lotus Elise and Exige wheel. Of course, it's plastic instead of metal, but it is a very, very good feeling and looking steering wheel. Overall, this interior is, slightly upgraded from when it came out, but all the good things are still here. And one of the most simple driver-centric cockpits you can get at any price point. Now, let's be real. This is a pretty low-rent interior, despite its simplicity. You can tell they didn't put all the money on the inside. It's no different than when the car launched. Yes, they've upgraded some of the materials, improved some of the ergonomics, but it rattles, it creaks, it still does not sound like it's built to the highest quality. And if you're okay with that, and of course that's what you expect in a car in this price point, you're going to be extremely happy with it. You're still going to have to add an armrest if you're daily driving this. There's still not a ton of interior room or cargo or storage space. The back seats are, a joke. You might as well just delete them. But if you can get over that, again, you don't buy this car for a lot of that. You buy it for the driving experience. All right, let's take this thing to the shop. I'm sure Scott will be so excited to see another 86, namely an automatic. What, are you allergic to this thing?
Mm-hmm. It's bringing back memories.
How does it make you feel to be under this after all this time?
It's nice because I'm not going to see it again.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I feel. When I bought this car in 2013, one of the main reasons I bought it, not because I didn't buy it because I liked it. I didn't buy it because I loved it. I bought it because I wanted to show support for Toyota to make a car that was driver-centric and simple as possible as a modern car.
And then you ruined that.
Well, then I ruined that and I had to modify the hell out of it, and I learned my lesson pretty quick. So as we look at the 2017, it's almost identical to the 2013. It's just been refreshed. And the main thing they've changed here in the front is you have new dampers and spring rates. They've messed around with this a couple times since the launch, and the primary reason they changed it was to make it more compliant, less over dampened, so it doesn't feel like you're on a bouncy house when you're driving on the street. And it really does, you know, if you get into this car back to back with the other one, and I can already tell it rides a lot better than the original car did. But if you're coming out of a regular car and you come in here and you're like, man, this thing is stiff, it does feel very firm, but not in a bad way, like Focus RS bad way. In the back, Scott, this is an automatic transmission. That's the only difference in it. I wanted to get the automatic version of this car because we never really did video on it. It was all about the manual. And, you know, really underneath, you can't tell much different aside from the gearbox in the front. The back end is really the same. The gearing's a little bit different, but you still have a Torsen limited slip differential, double wishbone in the back, a lot of what we saw before, all stamped steel. Toyota went to Subaru and said, hey, we want to build a car with you. And the only way they could kind of show a demo was to modify the hell out of an Impreza. So they took an Impreza chassis and said, here's our test mule. So when you look at this car now that it's been in production, there's so many different things that are shared a little bit here and there with the Impreza, and like the Forester, as we found out, replacing the rear wheel bearings, or you replace the rear wheel bearings when you cut the hell out of your hand. It's really the wheel bearing out of a Forester. So a lot of this is kind of a regurgitation of the other Subaru cars to, of course, it's cheaper to manufacture that way too. And that's one of the negative parts about this car. And we talked about it just way too much with the S2000 in this car. I did a video, and I think that wound up being the best review video between the S2000 and the FR-S back in the day. It had the most amount of detail, but we didn't have the production quality back then. You look at a car like this, it's so purpose-built, and then it's so Nerf at the same time. Nothing is adjustable under here. You can adjust toe, but you can't get camber adjustment in the front. You can't get camber adjustment in the rear, and it makes it more difficult for people that really want to track this car. So you got to modify all this crap, which, you know, I think this car is best left untouched, but it's probably one of the biggest tuner cars on the market. I don't think really anything touches it right now for the cost.
I like seeing all the slam ones driving around.
Yeah, it is unbelievable what people do to this car, and it's almost vomit-inducing. You know, some of it is so bad. But, you know, that's the whole point of this. It gets the younger crowd back into an affordable first rear-wheel drive car. You know, you can buy this and do a lot of shit to it if you really wanted to. If I was 16 and I got this car, I'd be...
Well, you'd probably put an intake and exhaust on it, and then you would think you gain power, and you lose power.
Yeah, lose the 10 horsepower that it can't afford to lose, right? Yeah, I probably would have gone nuts with this when I was a kid, too, so... Let's take a look under the hood.
I would have stuck with the Camaro.
That's all you right there.
The Chevy.
Look at that.
I had one.
I know you had one. Why don't you buy that one? That's got your name all over it.
No thanks.
Why? What's wrong with it?
It's a pile.
It's a V6 automatic. What more
V6?
could you want? I thought it was a V6.
It's a V8.
Really?
It's a 5.0, man. All 5.0, 180 horsepower. Takes up the whole engine bay.
My God. Yeah, that's all you. Purple. Look at that. What's that paint color called?
I don't know.
Snake skin purple or something?
Purple passion.
Garbage. You know, the one good thing about the Vortec kit is we never had a belt problem with it. You know, there's a lot of kits that have belt issues, and that one was
just a pulley issue.
Yeah, the pulley. It did have an issue. That's right.
And changing that belt was.
Oh yeah, pain in the ass.
Oh, that's right, because the supercharger mounted backwards to everything, so you had to take it all apart to change the belt.
Yeah, joke. So anyway, we're not talking about a modified 86 here. We're talking about the stock one. And there's a couple things that make this very interesting compared to really any other Subaru motor. For one, this seems to have held up extremely well. There's very minimal problems. People are modifying the hell out of this thing well beyond what we did. 300, 400 horsepower range, and this motor seems to hold up really well, aside from, you know, having a problem with low oil pressure. That's a consistent problem when you're track driving it with the heat and all that. But this borrows two things kind of from Toyota and Lexus. And first is the D4S system, and we talked about that a lot. It has direct import injection. While it adds some complication, you don't have to worry about carbon buildup, which is a really nice thing in the modern age of cars. So you get port and direct injection, you don't have to deal with carbon, and you get really good fuel economy here. You're gonna average over 30 miles per gallon in the summer if you're driving.
You should take the port injectors out and put nitrous nozzles in there.
You could do that.
That's what I would do.
Just make it bottle fed?
Yeah.
Yeah, you save that for the RS Camaro over there. The next thing it kind of borrows from Lexus, at least on the automatic version, is the torque converted automatic in this car is, you know, people knock getting this car in automatic, and I understand why. I would buy it in manual, but when you drive this, this is a extremely good torque converted automatic. It borrows a lot of what we saw from the F Sport Lexus and the RCF and the GSF.
Bro, they need to make a Lexus version of this.
They do. It'll never happen though.
Oh.
They're not going to invest the money.
Could you
in it.
imagine that nice grill on the front and some F Sport badges?
Oh yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd buy that.
Oof, some quad tailpipes on the angle like that. Oof.
Yeah, real blistering hot.
Man, next thing you know, it's going to be out like the Dodge Demon because I said it.
Yeah, I know. They're copying you. You better sue Dodge for once. Get some money back. And then the last thing to really talk about with it is the manual transmission version of this car gets a new intake manifold and revised tuning.
Why didn't they do it on the auto?
Probably because they didn't want to waste the money retuning it. Probably something to do with the gearing of the automatic.
But for, how would you say, 5 horsepower
It's
difference?
for 5 horsepower and a little bit more torque. So, yeah, you're not getting that here. That's the penalty of getting the automatic overall. But for the most part, this has been an extremely stable platform. Even after the course of 4 years, there's just not a lot of big issues with it. And if you're keeping it stock, aside from the body maybe rusting out and some of the rust issues we saw with the FR-S and all the stamped steel underneath, aside from that, not a lot to complain about here.
It's pretty tough.
Man, this thing sure makes a lot of noise. So the roads are covered in salt. It's like a free ice slick, so you can start getting this thing sideways more. Let's take it through the turns. Now I'm driving with all traction control off, no stability control in manual mode. Have to be really careful. This is a twitchy car to begin with, and we all know it. It's under-tired. It was completely set up this way to give you a little bit of rear-wheel drive bias and oversteer bias on the street. And when you're in conditions like this, with the traction control off, it is a sideways everywhere type car. And that's one of the biggest charms of it, but it's also one of the most tiring aspects of it, because it is so under-tired that when you really want to nail it through the corners, it's always stepping out. Namely, obviously in the cold, it's a lot worse. Now's a perfect time to talk about something incredibly important about the 86. When this car launched, the suspension was set up a lot more firm on this car. I would say it was over dampened for the street to give you that sense that the car was nimble and agile. Over the course of time, they've softened up the suspension. And the last time I was in this exact car was on the track, and it was completely evident there. It was more compliant, it was soft, but it still has that ability to roll and rotate whenever you want it. On the street, it's the biggest pro, because if you're somebody that's looking to buy this car now and keep it stock on the street, it rides so much better than it did when it was first launched. I could really tolerate this every day, more so than I could the original car, even in really bad pavement, cold weather, and summer, like these half-ass kind of all-season summer tires that are on here. It's a really good driving experience compared to where it used to be. There's something that is magical about this 86, and if you are a manual transmission snob, you're going to totally ignore this. And I bought a manual trans, I would never buy an automatic, but getting in here and spending some time in this vehicle, there is almost zero penalty for choosing the automatic transmission. Toyota and Mazda are making the two best torque-converted automatics on the market, and I'm really surprised to see it in this price range at this level. This is another experiment that I feel like has been absorbed from the Lexus line of F-Sport cars or the F-Sport cars. If you didn't think a torque-converted automatic can perform, you get in here and tell me this isn't a great automatic transmission. And if you're somebody that can't drive manual, doesn't want to, or has a medical condition which allows, you can't do clutch work, you're not going to get a penalty for driving this. Now, the great part is I really like the manual trans in this car, and the automatic is equally as good. It will let you hold revs. It rev matches downshifts, and it's very quick to respond. You can see that it will hit the fuel cutoff and hold revs. It doesn't auto upshift like a lot of the other Nerf Eco Car turbos and the other torque converted automatics. You can really control this like a manual gearbox, and that's one of the best parts about it. The brake pedal is one of the firmest brake pedals I've been in at any price range under like $70,000. That brake pedal is so firm, it gives you so much confidence, but then you realize, okay, you start to get into it and it's really modular. Even though it's got that stiff initial feel when you get into it, it's very progressive, and it doesn't have the stopping power that you would expect initially when you start to stab at it. You really have to get more deep into the pedal to get it to really come down. I just got out of a Kia Soul Turbo the other day, and I was so surprised at how quick that thing is, and then you get in here and it's like that Kia Soul would totally mop this car up. I mean, from probably 0 to 80 miles an hour, it would blow the doors off the 86. And I think, we're having the same conversation 4 years later. Toyota, Subaru has added all the different stuff here with aesthetics and, all the little knickknacks and changes of the interior, but they still haven't added the key component that would make this car even more special, and that is, power and torque. And it's just never gonna, this generation is not that car. And I think if you're somebody that can live with this and this formula, this is going to be one of the most enjoyable cars that you can buy today. There's not much that can touch this besides the ND Miata, and you have to go into the used market really to get anything else, or like the 370Z, the S2000, the RX8. That's really the only thing that will put a smile on your face in this kind of platform or this style of vehicle. So take that for what it's worth. So that's it for the Toyota 86, Scott.
That's a shame.
It's going back, and people are going to look for the conclusion, which I've already given them about 600,000 times with the previous videos. So what's different with the 2017? Do I still feel some type of, what does it make me feel? And at the end of the day,
You're just a pissed off individual that you bought a FRS? All you're going to do is bitch and moan about it?
no, really. Removed from it, I think this is an extremely noble idea, what they did here. Trying to build something that is very purpose-built, affordable, and attainable for regular people. It is an extremely fun car to drive. It's got a lot of potential. And if you can just live with that idea, that it is what it is, you're going to have a lot of fun with it. The other thing that I liked, and this is the downfall of it, this is the last time I'm going to talk about it, is I think Toyota had a really good idea making it a naturally aspirated platform. I think they came in knowing, okay, we're going to make a focused car, people can track it, autocross it, and we really appreciate high revving naturally aspirated motors. And Toyota didn't build one. They didn't build a 4-cylinder anymore once they got rid of the one out of the Celica GTS that was also on the Lotus. They didn't have one, so that's kind of why they went to Subaru and said, build us a naturally aspirated motor, high revving. And Subaru was like, are you guys on crack? Because we don't do that. You know, we build
5,000 RPM motors.
Yeah, 5,000 RPM turbo motors, right. So they did anyway. And I think, although I like naturally aspirated motors, this is not a good example of one. You get it in cars, modern cars like the GT350, the Porsches, they're naturally aspirated motors like S2000 motors. You understand the benefit of those cars. They tried to do the same thing here, and it not so much.
No. Epic fail on that part.
Yeah. So hopefully they learned something from this generation, and next go around, I hope they make another one, because if they did and they fixed a lot of these problems, I would buy it again.
They're going to make a Cabrio just for you.
A convertible version with the Sebring turbo motor in it. No, if they do a second generation, improve some of the horsepower deficiencies, you know, give it some extra grunt, I would buy it.
Put a 4-cylinder in the right way, like a Miata or an S2000 that works on those cars just fine. I mean, how much does it change by having the motor that low and a boxer engine in it? The weight.
It changes the weight distribution a lot, and it changes the balance of the chassis
All right,
a
then
lot.
move it back.
But that's the thing. Okay, you sacrificed the power output for the balance of the car. Okay, so they went with the balance aspect, and it's amazing. We've driven the hell out of this car. It is amazing for the price point. But then you sacrifice all the horsepower that would make it more exciting to drive. And like you said, okay, I'll trade off some of the balance for having that extra grunt on the track. And
I'd rather have a little extra grunt from buying it, whatever you want to call it, from straight off the showroom floor. Have a little more power and then work on the balance myself.